Compliance automation tools like Drata are great for automatically generating evidence to support your audits. However, they don't always integrate into every third-party tool that you might be using. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can leverage a no-code platform, make.com, to extract evidence from a third-party tool and seamlessly upload it into Drata. For this demonstration, we're going to be looking at this visitor log retention control, which is crucial for PCI DSS compliance. Here we need to store a visitor log for a minimum of 3 months. Thankfully, at the company, James P., we use a visitor management system called Sign-In App. Sign-In App allows us to log and track Office visitors. This system helps us meet that visitor log retention requirement, but we also need to store this evidence in Drata. Fortunately, Sign-In App has an API, which allows us to retrieve this data and we can store it as evidence in Drata using the Drata's API. So let's have a look at how we do this. Here, I'm in make.com and we're going to create a new scenario. Now, we can start this scenario from a set period. Let's get rid of this message and let's move my face. So here we can see we can set it a regular interval. Now we could just say, actually, we're going to do it to run on the 1st of the month at 9:30. Brilliant. So from here, we want to fetch the data from Sign-In App. So we already have, here we can see we've currently got a visitor that's signed in, and we've also got a visitor that's signed out. So how do we do that? If we look at Sign-In's documentation, they provide information on how to generate the API and what we need for that, and how we authenticate, which is using basic authentication. Fantastic. Make.com does not currently have a connection to Sign-In App, so we're going to use the built-in HTTP, and we're going to make a basic auth request. So from here, we want to create a keychain, and we want to give it a name. This is going to be Sign-In App. And now we need the username and password. So if we come to Sign-In App and we click Manage, we've got the Client API section, and we can create a new token. Here we're going to call this make.com, just as a friendly name. We now have a URL, which we'll come back to in a moment, a client key, so let's copy that, and we'll paste that as the username in make, and then a client secret, which we'll copy, and that's now our password. We'll create that, and now we have this credential stored in make that we can use in the future. Now we want to use the base URL, which we could paste in here. Fantastic. Now, what we're going to actually find out is that this base URL isn't going to give us the information we need. What we do want to use, if we look at the resource endpoints, we want to look at the site history. So here we need to call the sites, the specific site ID, and then the history. You can see in the documentation that the site ID will be visible in the URL after site. So if I switch back into my application, we can click OK because we've got the secret now. And we click Manage, go on to Sites. We have an overview of our sites. Here, I can click on my London office and I've got my site ID in the URL. Fantastic. Or if we call the sites endpoint, it will return the site ID. So let's have a look at that first. So with Client API version 1 sites. So we want sites, and we'll put that here. We'll do a GET request and click OK. Now, if we right click on this HTTP basic auth request and click Run this module only, it will run. We can view the log and we can see the data that's been returned. So here we can see my London office and the site ID 53678, which is exactly the same as we saw in the URL on Sign-In App. Fantastic. So we know our site ID. We could use this request in the future if we had multiple sites to iterate through every site ID. So now let's create another HTTP request. Again, it's a basic auth. We're going to select that same credential. And now we need the new URL. So I'm going to copy the URL from the previous one, so that backend sign-in app. But now we need the full URL, which is that site ID. So let's copy that from the URL here, and then /history. Now, if we come back to the documentation and we look here, we can see that there's a request from and to date. So, and these are required. And we can see here that the history endpoint has a maximum of up to 92 days. So this is part of the reason why we're pulling this out, because the history is only a maximum of 92 days from this API. If we pull it out every month for the last 60 days, for example, then we'll maintain that history and store it in Drata. Thankfully, it's in the ISO 8601 standard, and Make supports that. So from here, we need to add a question mark, date from equals, and then in Make, they've got some variables, so we can look on the date and we can click now. And then if we come back, we can do until date 2. And date 2 equals now. Now this is going to do a request, but it's only going to pull everything from now till now. So that's not going to be useful for us. So we want this to be history. Now in make.com, they support some variables, so we can do add days in brackets, and we can see the formula comes up. So we're going to use the current date, and then even though the function is called add days, we can add a negative number to subtract days. So if we do for the last, we want to do 90 days. So we do minus 90 and close that out. So now in this history, in this API call, we're going to be calling from now, minus 90 days, until now. So we'll click OK on that. And if we run this module only, we can see that it looks like it's run, and we can see the date that it's run from is the date until, which is now, was 11:47, which is UTC. You can see in my clock in the top right corner, I'm in British summertime, so I'm 1 hour ahead, but it's today's date, the 24th of May, and then we've got minus 90 days, which takes us to the 24th of February. So that's the URL request. We're doing that. That looks great. Let's have a look at the data, and we can see we've got some data in here, which is also good. Brilliant. Now what we need to do is iterate through this data. However, the data that's coming back is just coming back as a single bundle. We want to iterate through this as an array. So here we're going to select to parse the data, and I don't think we need anything in advanced options. No, we don't. So we're just going to parse that data. If we click OK here and we can run this module again, we'll see now that if we expand data, we've got an array for data, and then we've got a couple of options here. So we can see our visitor Todd Mack and our visitor Dave. And again, if we come back to sign in app and we look at today, we can see we've currently got Todd Mack who's signed in, and then Dave who's signed out. So we're getting the data that we need. That's fantastic. Now we want to iterate through this data and store it somewhere. So we're going to look at add a new item, and we're going to do flow control and iterator, and then we can select that. So we want to select, we've got two options here, HTTP1 and HTTP2. We can see here underneath the icons HTTP1 and HTTP2, and we want the data from HTTP2 and then that array. We don't want the individual items, we just actually want the array, and we're going to iterate through each of those arrays. Fantastic. Next, we need to store that data somewhere and do something with it. So we're going to do a Google Sheet. To do that, actually, we need to create a Google Sheet. So here I'm already logged into Google. I've got a folder, sign in app, visitor log, and we're just going to do a new sheet. Now, actually, we should give this sheet some headings whilst we've done that. And if we look at our previous run through, let's have a look at the data that we're returning. So what data do we want to store? We're probably going to want to store the ID. Let's formatted that, so let's not copy and paste that. So we want the ID. Then we're going to take the name of the visitor, the in_date time, and then the out date time. And then any additional fields will have the company name. And then metadata rejected. Okay, that looks good. I think that's enough information for now. I think you can also define who they visited if that was added, but that wasn't added in my example. But that's good. So let's call this spreadsheet visitor log. Save that. So now we have our iterator. We're going to do that to a new scenario, and we're going to select Google Sheets, and we're going to add a row. So we need to create a connection here to the Google Sheet. Let's create connection, and then let's call this Google Sheets. We're going to sign in with Google. I'm going to select my user to sign in with. I'm going to approve the OAuth prompt, so allowing Make to create, read, and edit my files. That's fine. That's what we need. So it's done that. Now we can select the path manually, or we can enter a file name manually. So we're going to select the path. So we're going to choose a file. We're going to select my folder, and then I have another folder. So that is my sign-in app visitor log. And then we're going to select the sheet, which is that visitor log we just created. Here we're going to select the sheet name. So we're using default sheet 1. And then does the table contain headers? Yes, it does. And now it's returned the headers that we just set on that sheet. So now we can use that flow control to get the data. So we're going to select the ID. We're going to map the name to the name, the in time, the out time, and then that additional value of that company. Great. So this is looking good. Let's just test run this. So here at the bottom, we can click run once. This is going to run through APIs. Depending on the APIs, this should be pretty quick. Here we go. So we've got that, we've got the data. We can see the iterator ran through and it's got 2 bundles. And then there was 2 iterations on the Google Sheet. That looks fantastic. So if we come back into the Google Sheet, we can now see that we've got that data in the Google Sheet coming in from sign-in. Great. So now we want that as evidence. Now I'm just going to delete that because we don't need it just yet. I'll clear that out, and we're going to come back to editing this. So from here, we want to download the file once that's done. So we're going to come to and search for a Google Drive, and we're going to do download file. Now, again, we only connected Make to Google Sheets, not to Google Drive. So let's create the new connection. Again, we're going to sign in, log in with our user, select the permissions, approve those, and that's done. And again, we're going to select the file from the list. So I'm going to choose my file. Got lots of files, so find my folder. Select the new folder, and then we're going to select that file. Now, in the advanced options, what we're going to do is we're actually going to download this as a PDF. Again, that's just a preference. Now here, we can add a filter. So we're going to set up a filter which basically says we're going to move forward after the iterator. And then we're going to select the iterator, which is the bundle order position equals to the total number. And we're going to save that. Otherwise, what you might find is that as this is running and then this one is running, we then try to download the file too quickly. So we're just going to add that filter. So now we're going to download that file into Make. We need to post that file into Drata. So we're going to move forward and we're going to select HTTP again. And now this time, Drata supports an API key auth request. But we don't have our credential yet. So we're going to click Add, and then we're going to call this Drata. Now we need to add the key. So again, in Drata, we need to come here, come into our settings, select API keys. I've got many, but we're going to create a new API key. So I'm just going to give this a name. We can select the expiration. I'm going to select never expires. And then for now, for the purpose of this demo, we're going to do all read write, and I'm going to save that. Now we've got the API key. So we're going to copy that, come into Make, paste the key in, and then we're going to say yes in the header. But actually, if we look at Drata's developer docs, and then let's just have a look at control for now. We can see here the header is actually authorization. So we're going to select the header as authorization. But the way we Drata expects to receive it is bearer, space, and then the API key. So I'm just going to view this. We're going to come to the front. We're going to put bearer there, then the space, then the API key. And we're going to create that. Now we want to post this into Drata. Now there's a couple of options, but as we've got this open, we're going to post this directly to the control. So we're going to copy this URL. We're going to click down on here. I'm going to put the URL here. Now, in my example, I'm actually on the European data cell, so I'm just going to add the public API.eu. The workspace ID, the default one is 1, and now we need the control ID. So if we come back to controls and we look at our DCF 380, the visitor log retention control, we want the ID, which is in the URL. I'll put that. Next, we're going to do a post, and then we can follow from the developer docs everything that we need to do. So here we need to set the body type to multi-part form data. Then we want to upload the file, and the key for that is just file. Then we can select the file, which is that Google Drive download that we've just got. So Make helps us with that. Now we need to add an item. So we want to do text, and then we can see we need the creation date. So that's creation date. Now we can add a value here. Now we're actually going to format this date. So I'm going to do format date. Here we're going to minus a day from now, just for the example, and then we've formatted the day to year, month, day, which is how Drata expects to see it. Then we need to do another text, select the renewal schedule, and then I'm just going to set that to 3 months. And we need to select the renewal date. So again, text, the renewal date. And then we're going to do similar. We're going to format the date, but this time we're going to select today and add months and make that in 3 months' time. And then finally, we need to set the file name. And then the name of that file can just be the name that we downloaded. Perfect. Now, I think that is everything we need to do. So if we click run once again, we've added the data into the sheets, we've downloaded the file, and then has this been successful? It has. Fantastic. So if we look back at our control in Drata, it was not ready and there was no miscellaneous evidence attached. We're just going to do a refresh on the page. And we're going to scroll down and we can see this miscellaneous evidence. The visitor log PDF has been uploaded and we can view that and we can see we now have a PDF of the Google Sheet that we just created. So there we have it. We've now used Make, a very simple process. And again, we can schedule this to run every so often. We just need to turn it on. I'm going to save this scenario, but now we're automatically going to pull our data out of the sign-in app, put that into a Google spreadsheet. We're going to download that as a PDF, and then we post it into Drata as a control. We can see here we set the creation date to yesterday, and we set the renewal date in 3 months. I hope you found that really useful as a way of using the Drata APIs, as well as sign-in apps APIs, and especially Make. Thank you.